Welcome to North Fulton Serves, a podcast where we share stories about people making a difference in our community and learning about how we can get more involved. I'm your host, Jason Binder, and with me today is my friend Hans Appen with Appen Media, and among many other things that we'll discuss today. But welcome, Hans.
Thanks
for joining
Jason.
us.
It's interesting being on the other side of the table now.
I think I've done about a handful of episodes with you, and I don't know how I'm going to do. You can grade me later, but I'm glad I'm on the other side.
Yeah, this will be fun. Tables are turned.
So we've known each other for quite some time, and I think we first met, and maybe I was first introduced to you. You were as a board member of the Alpharetta Business Association.
Okay.
And I can't remember what I was asking for at the time. It might have been Rotary related, and so you had. All I know is they had me speak for 2 minutes, and then they closed the door and went into discussions, and you were in there.
Okay.
But and then 2012, I asked you to join Rotary, and so you've been there.
Suckered me into that one.
Suckered you into that one, and been a good addition there. But you've been known for having, we'll say, volunteerism and engagement for multiple things, and just wanted to go through your thought process on that and the ones that you had. So first one is that I can remember that was all you is NFAYPA. No, NFAYP.
It's okay. Nobody ever got it right when we were doing it.
Which is during we'll call it your acronym phase.
That's before I learned how to brand things appropriately, and
To this day, I still can't remember the A. I got North Fulton Young Professionals. So what was NFAYP?
North Fulton Alliance of Young Professionals. It was a mouthful.
There we go.
And the acronym didn't help much because no one could remember what the acronym was. So, but no, you and I talked when we were getting that organization started. I think that's when you and I really started to get to know each other well.
Yep.
I remember some lunches over at Chick-fil-A, and you were Rotary president at the time, I believe.
No, that was way before. You know what? I think I was the Young Professionals director on the board. So with Rotaract and Interact, and that's why.
Okay, that was it then. And so you had heard through the grapevine, or maybe we had talked about that. I was working on this organization to really help identify and grow young professionals in the area. And that had been part of my campaign platform, if you remember, back in 2011 when I ran for city council. I was 21 at the time, and part of my platform was I want to help, Alpharetta's the tech, or wasn't at the time, the tech city of the South. And I thought a big part of making that mission happen would be to really identify and make young professionals in the area feel welcome in the city. So I kind of piggybacked a little bit on what candidate Belle Isle at the time, and then Mayor Belle Isle was working on with there. So when I lost that election, I was sort of wandering in the wilderness trying to figure out something to do. And that's when I said, well, if I'm sincere about this mission, I don't need to be an elected official to make it happen.
Yeah.
So we actually started that organization. It was my wife and I, and a guy named Zach Mullins, a great guy who now works for Cox Media. But the three of us would do coffees and lunches, trying to figure out exactly what we wanted to see in this organization. And I actually remember it. We started planning the organization in April of 2012, I want to say. It was either 2012 or 2013, and we officially launched it on August 15th of that year, because we would have birthday parties for the organization on that day going forward. And it was a great organization. I ran it for 2 years and then stayed on the board, and Christina ran it for another year. And then Kelly Jerica took it over and ran it for 2 years. Yep. And it's now, it is gone. The organization no longer exists, but a 5-year run for a startup organization, I figure, hey, it's a success.
And for young professionals with a higher
and the context there is that chambers of commerce and I would think Rotaries Rotary clubs in the area to a certain extent that's been a central part of their mission for a while now. And no one really seems to figure out what it takes to really organize young people in this market. And the biggest issue is that most of them don't live here. They live in Buckhead and Atlanta, and a lot of them work here. But as soon as they get done with work, they want to go home and go down to the bar scene downtown and be with friends there. So I've talked to people over at North Fulton Chamber and with Alpharetta Chamber, given that we had done this young professionals group for so long, about sort of what it takes to make it work. And the short of it is, I don't think right now you really can. We topped off our membership at about 125 maybe.
Okay. With
about 20% of them would show up on a regular basis to the events that we had. But I think that's your high bar. And for most organizations like a chamber or a Rotary, that's not a tenable situation. They need to see those numbers inflated a little bit more. But it was fun while it lasted, for sure.
You got the issues out, and was that the goal of that organization, to show that there should be more awareness on young professionals?
Yes. Gosh, you're gonna go get me thinking about what the mission was. Before we started the show, we were talking about how it seems like an eternity ago. I guess it wasn't really that long ago, but you and I have both been involved in so much since then. It does seem forever ago, but we think we had 4 core missions for the organization. It was to identify young professionals in the area. You can't do anything with them unless you know who they are. Engage them in the organization, grow their careers, and enhance their professional skills. So that was kind of the 4 pillars of what we were trying to do. And to a certain extent, we were pretty successful with a lot of that. We actually, through the organization, we launched a sort of program or committee, if you will, to place young professionals in a non-voting role on local nonprofits, which helped them get engaged.
I remember that, yeah.
And that was probably, looking back on it, the coolest thing we did was that program. And I think we topped out we had placed about 10 young professionals on local nonprofits.
And I would say there's still a footprint of that today, because they've not only grown to add young professionals as board members, but their own young professional committees. Mm-hmm. And a lot of them are doing great things. Lionheart has one, and that's how they came up with the Avalon 5K. And
Drake House has one.
Yeah.
North Fulton Community Charities is working on one.
Yep.
And then a couple of the members that we placed in that role as a non-voting board member were actually offered, after sort of the completion of their program, to stay on, but this time as a full voting board member. So there's actually still kind of a legacy of that there. I think Lane Kamsler, who was involved in NFAYP, she joined the Drake House board in that role, and she's still on it. Samantha, and she has been married since, I don't remember her married name, but Samantha Vence,
okay, with
Edge Solutions, she was placed on the North Fulton Community Charities Board, and I believe she is still on.
Now a full board member.
So that was a cool thing that we did. I would like to see maybe Rotary or one of the chambers, if they were to approach a young professionals organization, it might be through something like that, a very specific program.
Yeah. I think that was very helpful, and you did see the after effect, and the chamber's still trying to do it. I think we really haven't found the formula yet to how to make that an existing long-term organization that lasts through a couple of the iterations of people aging out or finding different things. So.
Well, and the other issue, I mentioned that many of them don't live here. The other big issue is obviously tale as old as time. I mean, they're young people growing in their careers and tend to transition to new roles and new companies early on. So they're
the life milestones happen a lot more often between that
Right.
20 to 30 age.
Right.
than-
I mean, we had a
than
lot of
others.
people get married and have children
Yep.
throughout the course of their membership of being on NFAYP, and that changes your priority list when
Well,
stuff like
I
that
tried
happens.
to help out as much as possible, but I was under. We just had Cecilia there, and it was like, no, you're coming home, and you're not going to that meeting
Right.
after
Right.
work.
Right.
So
Yeah.
no, I remember that. And then fast forward a little bit was the Alpharetta Chamber. So I got you into Rotary, and then you paid me back, and you got me into Chamber. Tell me a little bit of how that got started. How you came up with the idea, or where there was a need for an opportunity.
Sure. So we could probably do an entire separate show
Yep.
on the history of the chamber and how it got started and everything, but it's worthwhile talking about in context of giving back and starting organizations and figuring out your place in the community, because it is probably one of the more successful initiatives that I've worked on, and one of the things I'm most proud of. This was 2013. I was a board member on Greater North Fulton Chamber of Commerce and ABA at the time, Alpharetta Business Association. And I owned the domain name alpharettachamber.com. My thinking behind owning the domain name is that here at Appen Media Group, with what I do, I come up with these just weird ideas all the time, and I'll buy domain names
in
for
the
them.
hopper.
Yeah, put them in the hopper, and sometimes I think, like, if I've bought the domain, it's there as a to-do at some point down the road. But I bought this domain thinking that what I might do eventually through Appen Media Group was create almost just like a business directory page for the city of Alpharetta to be able to go and see who the local retailers were, the restaurants. It was never intended to be an actual chamber of commerce. I just liked calling it the Alpharetta Chamber because that'd be memorable. People could know I'm going to go to this website that is called the Alpharetta Chamber. And that's how I would think, how I was identified early on with the small group of people who were talking about creating this organization. Some of the history behind creating the Alpharetta Chamber of Commerce is that to a large degree, all of North Fulton had been and continues to be served by the Greater North Fulton Chamber of Commerce. The city of Alpharetta was incorporated in 1847. You may know that better than me, Counselor.
I think that's right.
I think it's
1847 or 1848.
Old. It's old.
We're not going to argue a year. I'll give you the year.
Yeah, and we had our sister city was Roswell, but at the time that was really it as far as what we now know as North Fulton. Milton, Johns Creek, Sandy Springs, who am I forgetting? Peachtree Corners. All those cities have incorporated within the last couple of decades. So the North Fulton Chamber of Commerce, which is 49 years old, was serving all of those areas. But as these cities began to incorporate, part of their incorporation, it seemed like a pattern of it was that they would also create a small chamber of commerce to help support the business community within these new cities. Alpharetta was by no means a new city, but at the same time, we were also now looking at all of these surrounding cities that did not have their own small hometown chamber of commerce to serve their businesses in addition to the efforts of the North Fulton Chamber of Commerce. So there was a small group that thought that there could be a role to play for an organization like that beyond what North Fulton Chamber was already doing. So I got involved in that group, and we did some months of planning, much like we did planning with
Involved,
NFAYP.
I think you meant you wrangled that group.
Well,
because you worked hard. There was a big group.
There was a group of 3 or 4 who we had some initial just kind of, is this even worth spending our time on type meetings?
Yeah.
And once we started to wrangle more people into the fold, I turned out to be the person that was responsible for doing that. And we planned and planned and planned for months. And at the end of it, when we were kind of done with all our planning, we all looked around at each other and said, well, what's next? Who's going to do this? When are we going to have our first event? And I was the idiot that raised his hand and said, well, I'll do it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I got involved and really started to run it. We kicked off, the Alpharetta Chamber just had its 5-year anniversary.
Yep.
And I ran it for the better part of 3 years. We helped, we went from a charter night organization where we had 77 members
At the Metropolitan Club.
at the Metropolitan Club, November 15th, 2013. And we had 77 people sign up that night. And they were considered and are considered our charter members. Look at me, I'm still saying our, and I'm no longer on the board actually either. I just stepped down.
Oh, wow.
But we grew that organization over the course of the next 5 years. We topped out somewhere in the ballpark of 500 members. At one point in time, we had a staff of 3 full-time people, 2 part-time people. We probably got a little top heavy on staff, and I know right now they're running the organization really just with 2 full-time people, which is probably really more where it needs to be at right now at this stage. But no, I ran that for 3 years. I just worked like a dog for 3 years, because the kicker there is that I was, that was also around the time where I took over operations here at Appen Media Group. So I really worked 2 full-time jobs.
There were not enough hours in the day.
No,
I think we all remember how you were just trying to figure out how you could keep standing.
Yes. Well, the big transition I made during that time is I stopped drinking energy drinks and switched to coffee.
Yeah.
Because obviously
it was a little too much.
If you see me here on the video, I've got 2 coffees out here on the table, but around 2000.
That's a lovely cup too. With
it is a great
Appen
cup.
Podcast Network.
They're brand new to the show. Actually, if you come onto the show, we'll give you one.
There we go.
So anybody who wants to be on Jason's show, come get you a mug. But no, that it was a strain, and it was around that time Christina and I started talking about starting our family. I was getting more and more involved over here at Appen Media, and quite frankly, the cupboard was quite full at the Alpharetta Chamber of Commerce. I was not leaving them with a lot pending. Whoever came in next would have a lot to work with, and the timing was right, and I stepped down, I want to say at the end of 2016.
Okay.
And we had somebody take over for a short period of time, and then now Nancy, who's the new president CEO, is great, and starting new programs, leaving her own stamp on the organization, and doing some really cool things. So I'm proud of it. It's cool.
It's been good. So how have you learned? And that's part of this podcast. Is I want you to tell your story of what you've done and how you found success, and try to add to your community, but also how can others learn from your lessons learned?
Sure. No, I can definitely offer some lessons.
Yeah, we all can.
Save you some heartache and some time.
Can. But how have you figured out that balance of when to know, okay, I've done all I can on this group. Let me move aside to let somebody else take the reins, or let me find the next opportunity where I think I can do more with my time.
Well, so I'll offer, before I get into that, I'll offer just maybe, a little bit of information, sort of maybe the why I was doing all these things. Here at Appen Media Group, we're the newspaper of record for Alpharetta, Milton, Johns Creek. We also serve Roswell and South Forsyth County. As of this week, we also serve Dunwoody and DeKalb County.
That's big news. Congratulations.
Thank you. It's exciting. We bought the Dunwoody Crier, which is a fantastic newspaper, been around since 1947. The previous owner and publisher and editor, a guy named Dick Williams, is he's a pillar in the news industry here in the state and in politics. He ran the Georgia Gang show forever. And
does that mean that's what you're going to be doing? You'll be next in line as moderator?
Oh, gosh. That'll be Preston. That'll be Preston.
That would be
Preston would be great for that. But so I bring that up to say a lot of my job here at Appen Media Group is to kind of be the public face to what we do. We need people, including myself, to get out in the community and tell people about what we do and ask them what they want us to be doing more of or less of, because we need people to read our newspapers and we need people to read our news, because we are 100% run on advertising dollars. And if they're not reading our news, they're not spending money with our advertisers. So that's a lot of what I do is getting out in the community and making sure that we have kind of an ear to the ground at all times. And a way to do that is to get involved in organizations and not necessarily serve on their boards, but be there and help. Oftentimes, as you're well aware of, if you're there and you're helping, you're likely going to be asked to serve on a board at some point in time. And that was a big part of why I joined Rotary at the time. Was I needed to, I was 22 and really starting to get my legs under me at Appen Media Group. And I thought Rotary, my dad had previously been a member and had great things to say about it. And I knew some people at Rotary, but not everybody. And if you ever go to an Alpharetta Rotary event, everybody who's everybody is a member over at Alpharetta Rotary Club. So it's a great place to get plugged into the community and learn what's going on. So that was a big part of joining Rotary and why I have gotten more involved in all these organizations.
Yeah, I think just like you were saying, the chambers, every city has their chamber. Every city has a Rotary Club or something, some other civic organization. Especially here in North Fulton, the Rotary clubs do a lot of part of being the hub for community news and what's going on and how to get hubbed in and clicked into other organizations that you can align passion with.
And the Rotary clubs, in my experience in this area, are just fantastic. It's hard for me if I meet somebody who says I want to get more involved, I want to give back. What's your recommendation? It's hard to come up with something better than join a Rotary club.
Yeah.
And getting involved there. There's plenty of organizations that need help and will take help, but a great place to start is the Rotary Club.
And they all have very strong ones. We're all very proud of our hometown Alpharetta Rotary Club, but
it's competitive too.
It's competitive, but North Fulton Rotary, Milton Rotary, Roswell, all of them are just we're blessed with. And
there's
with all
four
of them
in Forsyth County, I think. 4 clubs, 5 clubs.
Yeah,
like that.
Probably. I get a little confused when we get outside of our district, but I think you're right.
But no, I mean, and so to answer your question about sort of advice to someone looking to get more involved, I think the sooner you do it when you're starting out in your career, the better, because you're going to make connections with people that they may not be able to help you now, but in a year from now, 2 years from now, they'll be able to introduce you to someone or make some kind of a connection or give you an idea that's something that you really need at that time.
Yeah.
So for anybody that is starting out in their careers, getting involved in local nonprofits is a great thing to do. Now, of course, there are some jobs where that's not as much of an option for somebody. I have a lot of flexibility here at Appen Media to do some of those things. So that's another piece of advice when you're job hunting. If that's something that's important to you, make sure you're clear on that with your employer before you take a job. Having flexibility to give back and to join organizations is important. When you're looking to find something there. So that'd be another piece of advice. The other big piece of advice, which I think is probably part of why you wanted me on the show, is that you also need to learn when and how to say no.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that, because you and I were very similar. You just entered into the job market. I entered into the community, and I think we said yes to a lot of things. And how has that changed over the past few years as you've grown in your job responsibilities, grown with your family to say, okay, here's what I'm going to focus on or what I'm going to do?
Yeah. So I very honestly, I learned the hard way because I personally started having health issues with not eating right or not sleeping as much as I should have because I felt so overwhelmed and was doing so many things. And so almost by necessity, I had to scale back. But the better and smarter thing to have done would have been to identify how much time I had available to give back outside of my full-time bills-paying job. And right now for me, that is 3 organizations is kind of my limit beyond what I do here at Appen Media Group. But, there was a time where I was on 6, 7, 8 different boards that there was not a day where I didn't have a board meeting in the morning or in the afternoon.
Oh, wow.
And that, that was too much. That was not tenable for anybody, especially someone starting, looking to start a family and do some things like that. So,
well, I got to imagine it was tough too when you get to eight organizations, because you want to do the best you can and give back to the organization.
Yeah.
But at some point, you're spread a little thin, and you can't give as much as you would like to each one.
And you'll anybody that's on a board or looking to get involved in an organization, you'll run into people who will say yes to being on a board so that they can put it on their LinkedIn profile. That was not me.
Yeah.
They're on my LinkedIn profile, but that's not why I joined. I joined because I wanted to be involved. I wanted to give back and be a public face to Appen Media Group. But if you're gonna join an organization and spend time, spend money, then really get involved and understand the mission and be a part of that mission.
So now you're into three organizations, and you think that's good to help spread. So what's your decision making?
Yeah, I mean, once I figured out that was my number and established that number, honestly, the decision making is if and when I'm asked, I just say no. I'm sorry, I don't have the time right now. I'm honored, and maybe in the future, if you'd consider me again. I did have an organization recently. I won't say who. But, they asked me. I said I'd love to. You all do wonderful work. I can't. We got a 3rd child on the way. So now that I can
tell
think
you
about
from recent experience, that's going to be a real big game changer.
Yeah, well, that's what I was just thinking. That my number of 3, I might need to make that 2 if with a little one on the way.
Yeah,
but
2 organizations. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. But no, I mean it's important. You need to have a good work-life balance.
Yeah.
And I think my issue was I was definitely top heavy on the work side of things, and I was letting things that are very, very important, like my health, fall through the cracks. And it was a conversation with my family and with people I trust and look to for advice to kind of figure out what direction I needed to go in. So I believe even as I'm thinking of it now, I believe I landed on 3. So we got YMCA, Rotary, Georgia Ensemble Theater, and I do have a kind of 4th, but we only meet quarterly, so I won't count that towards my list.
So do you look within that group? Do you see kind of where you are and that, how many years served on that? So when you start a board, how much, that's a lot more time getting onboarded, implementing ideas, et cetera. And then you start being more of a life cycle of a board member where you're just a regular board member, the day-to-day, and then you start kind of being a mentor board member. So do you have that within your organizations that you pick?
Yeah, and it differs a little bit. Like, I love the way Rotary is structured.
Yep.
Because you serve a year and you're done.
Yeah.
I mean, you hit the ground running from day one.
As a board member.
But yeah, as a board member.
Yeah.
As a board member, so each Rotary Club has a board of directors that runs their organization. How many times have you been on the board in addition to being president?
Well, I think probably 4 years, and then so if you're on track to being president, you get about 3 to 4 years, and then I will say this is my 2nd year off as president, and now I'm just now coming back on board, and I'm finally ready and energized to go on again. But it's a commitment. It
is a commitment, but it also has an end date.
Yes,
which is nice because there are. As an alternative, there are boards where it's really you're on it indefinitely till you tell them you can't be, you don't want to be on it anymore. So setting up the expectations before you say yes to being on a board. I think understanding what the expectations are time-wise, financially.
That's something I didn't
You
realize
have
at
to
the
do that.
beginning. And
Right.
you're right. That is now a prerequisite before signing off to anything.
Yeah. And I am chairing the Alpharetta YMCA board this year. And it's a 2-year term. So again, it's a much bigger commitment than when I've been a general board member for the YMCA.
You're on your first year now?
I'm on my first year of a 2-year term.
Started
in January.
January.
Yeah.
Oh, so you're
Yeah.
first quarter still.
Yeah. I'm I'm an eighth of the way through.
Yeah.
But no, I mean it helps because I went into accepting, the nomination to be chair because I had very clear. We were all on the same page as far as what kind of time commitment I had and what I would be able to do above and beyond what any board member would be able to do.
Now you grew up around here, right? And
I did.
I know the answer to that, but
yeah. So
were you involved with the YMCA? Were you on the YMCA soccer team and stuff like that?
I was on the YMCA soccer team. I was cleaning out my basement a couple of weeks ago and found my YMCA basketball trophy from 2000. So I was 12. Yeah. I keep meaning to bring that to one of the board meetings and show everybody. But no, my parents moved our family to Alpharetta in 1990.
Okay.
So I was 2. So Alpharetta is really all I know.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe a good segue too. I mean, a lot of this is my parents have been doing, this kind of work and involvement in the community for 30 years. So they have been sort of my example for how to get involved or why to get involved. And I learned the figuring out how much is too much on my own, but just about everything else, they've kind of set the example for me.
Well, so, and that's good. And now with your kids, 3, you're trying to show the way too, that it's just part of everyday life and part of a balance in there. So I'm sure you're taking them to the events and what you can as well.
Phoebe is going to the mud run, which I believe it's either, I need to look, I think it's Sunday, but it's this weekend.
Let me know if it's Sunday, because then...
Is it Saturday?
If it's Saturday, I know I can't do it. But if it's Sunday, I know that's on our track.
Okay. Well, we can find that out and put it in the show notes.
There we go.
We'll put a link in the show notes. But no, that's a fun YMCA event that they do annually down by Big Creek, and all the kids run through the mud, and then we hose them off afterwards. And it's a lot of fun. And she recently went to the MLK Day sandwich making event that the YMCA does. So I try to, Leo's not quite old enough to really get involved yet, but anytime I can, I'll bring Phoebe to Rotary with me. And I think that's good for her to see that kind of stuff.
I think that's important for people to know, is that, at least for me, I think you and I are the same, where it's like, we didn't want to wait till we had more time, because I don't think you're ever going to have more time.
No.
And
No.
it's good to bring your family into that now, so they can lead by example. I know my parents did the same thing.
Yeah.
It's, especially my mom, she would take the whole car to all the different volunteer opportunities that she had. But when you told me that you were now the chair for the Y, or when that news hit, I was extremely happy for you, because I think it's a good pairing. But that YMCA, the Alpharetta YMCA, does so much, and their story needs to be told, more and more, because it's not just a place for your kids to play soccer, or a place for your after-school activity. Mm-hmm. They do a lot more in the community. Talk a little bit about that.
Yes, and it's something that, so the Alpharetta Y, it's interesting because it's part of a collective group of YMCAs across all of Metro Atlanta. There's either 19 or 20 branches. I should know that, but there's either 19 or 20 branches, and they are kind of run by an organization called the Metro YMCA, the Metro Atlanta YMCA. So we work together, we report to them, we help contribute some dollars to organization-wide efforts. But a big part of my mission as chair this year is kind of like you said, is working on the brand of our YMCA here in Alpharetta. It's nothing new. We've always talked about that what we are not is just a swim and gym.
Yep.
That's what people know the YMCA as. You know, across the world, it's swim and gym. But they, like you mentioned, they do so much more that much of which my eyes were opened up to just by joining the board. I didn't know about, you know, all of it until I got really involved. And there's three things that I really like to tout as, you know, things that I'm passionate about what we do. One, and this is kind of a new effort this year, is that we are giving swim lessons to kids who can't afford to do them through a private swim lesson company or like a Swim Atlanta Dynamo type of thing. And that's been part of our mission for 2019, because actually drowning is one of the leading causes of deaths for children under the age of 16. So we give out, and I should have all the numbers in front of me, so that's my bad. But
don't worry.
We give scholarships, and kids can come to the Alpharetta YMCA and learn how to swim.
I think that's an impressive thing to note, though, too, is it's really an expansion of an existing that's happened for quite some time. Of my understanding, nobody has turned away for the aftercare, and nobody's turned away because of monetary reasons if they're willing to, you know, work and partner in there.
Right.
And so that really helps out with the families there that, you know, maybe can't afford or have you know multiple kids and income restrictions in there. So the swim lessons is an expansion of the existing program.
Yeah, and it's the Y is a perfect vehicle for making that happen.
Yeah.
They've got a great pool. They added an outdoor pool that's really fun for kids and everything a few years ago, and it's a great program. It's one of the things I'm proudest about our work at the Y.
And the other thing that I've known through Rotary with that is the lunch program at the different apartments, because there is no lunch or food when schools are out of session for people that maybe don't have enough for food. So they deliver lunches every day, and then they have the kids play ball, play basketball, or whatever, get outside instead of just on their devices, and serve lunch, which may be their only meal that day.
Most people don't know that there are a significant number of kids in the Fulton County school system who would not have breakfast and lunch without the subsidized food meals that they receive at their elementary school or their high school. So I mean that's critical, you know. And the other big program that I love related is the summer camp program that the Alpharetta YMCA puts on. They have over 500 kids per week on that Big Creek campus, and many of them are scholarship campers that the Y puts on, and like you said, we don't turn down a single camp registration for somebody that can't afford it.
Now, has your oldest been in that camp yet? I don't know. Is this the first year?
I think next year is the first year she's eligible. I think it's 5 years old. And I think
it's 5 or 6, but yeah, you're right.
So she's 4, so we're a year away, I think, or 2.
So my oldest started it 2 years ago,
and
she absolutely loves that camp because they let her have the bow and arrow, wall climbing, and for the kids, you always want them to kind of challenge themselves and say, "Okay, can I do it or not?" And so it's a little bit more than some of the other summer camps, more of a challenging experience. But then the counselors have just always been fantastic and have that Y mentality and culture of bringing up families and individuals.
Yeah.
So
they hire they hire wonderful counselors. The staff at the Y is top notch. And a little known fact actually related that people don't know about the Alpharetta YMCA, if you incorporate all the camp counselors, the aftercare, after school daycare teachers, and the staff on site at the Alpharetta Y, it is actually the largest employer in the city of Alpharetta.
All right, you're going to have to say that again.
Mm-hmm.
Say that slowly for me. I'm more of a visual guy, but
so the Alpharetta YMCA, I'll start at the end. The Alpharetta YMCA employs about 800 people.
Wow.
Which would and does make it the largest employer in the city of Alpharetta.
With all the coaches, staff members.
Coaches, after-school program directors.
You're right, because of all the schools.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's about 2,200 kids in after-school programs through the Alpharetta Y.
Huh.
It is, of the 19 or 20 branches in the metro Atlanta area, it is by far the largest after-school program.
So you mentioned the swimming. What other programs or anything else that you're working on in your
The big
2
three
years?
for me are the swimming, the camps, and gosh, I'm blanking on the after school programs.
Yep.
And the after school programs, one of the things I like to talk about with the after school programs is without that program, and I mentioned there's 2,200 kids that go through the Alpharetta Y's after school programs. Without those programs, there are moms and dads across the region who would not be able to keep working to 5:30 without those programs.
I just looked that up because we're switching schools,
Mm-hmm.
and they're open till 6:30, and
Mm-hmm.
and you're right, because it allows the opportunity for the kids to be in a safe place, and
Yeah.
and you know that they're gonna have fun and get exercise and get their schoolwork done.
Yeah. It is a selling point. So obviously a big part of my role as chairman is to go out and fundraise.
Yep.
And it's a selling point for when I go out and fundraise is to go to local businesses and say, look, we are offering people of Alpharetta in the region a low cost way for parents to keep their kids in a safe educational environment after school gets out. So help us continue to fund that program and make that happen. So that resonates with business owners. So it's a great way for me to go out and try to raise some dollars for.
So you called me at another kind of a
I
call
had a
hotline,
call blitz day, and Jason was on my list.
and you said my $100 goes to what?
Your $100. So a summer camp entry registration fee is $100.
Yep.
So my pitch, or one of my pitches when I'm out helping to raise money for the Ys, I say, if you can give $100, there will be a child who can go to camp with us this summer that would not have otherwise.
So if somebody wants to donate to the Y, how do they do that?
So you can go to YMCAatlanta.org
Okay.
or AtlantaYMCA.org, and there's a donate button there. Every campaign, every YMCA board chair also has a fundraising page. So if you're looking to donate towards a specific YMCA, that's a good way to do it too.
So we'll put that link in there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And if people want to get more involved within the YMCA to volunteer to coach or Y Togetherhood, is that still available?
Absolutely. No.
So they just contact the YMCA and ask how they can get
Contact the
involved.
Y, reach out to them, call me. I'm happy to give them a 411 on how to get more involved. I would if you want to take me up on it, I'd be happy to give anybody that would like a tour of the Big Creek campus. Walk them around, show them. You mentioned the archery fields over there. It's a massive campus, and it's a really cool thing just to walk through and see all the kids in action. So call me up. I'd be happy to give a tour to anybody.
That'd be good. So is there anything else that I know. So you still have that entrepreneur spirit. So the podcast,
we got the
digital.
podcast
So
going.
that's been on that side. So is there any other new organizations or new what's on your list as far as social entrepreneurship?
It's I think my focus right now, and it's related to honing in on managing time and being most efficient with your time. So one of the things that where I'm kind of at right now is that we've got a great base of organizations and products and publications that could be better. So I am trying to take my entrepreneurial hat off a little bit focus more on building the base of what we have. And Daniel and I are working hard on the podcast network. There's tons of potential to grow all of these shows, and the listenership. Really, the sky's the limit because you can listen to podcasts for free. So the audience is really limitless. And so the podcast is a big focus of ours right now. We mentioned the Dunwoody Crier. I'm going to need to spend a lot of time kind of incorporating that into our product line and getting to understand and meet the people of Dunwoody a little bit more. And it's a very different market from here in Alpharetta. So it's something I'm going to need to spend some time on, and actually having lunch with the mayor tomorrow. It's going to be our first little meet and greet, and want to get his vision for the city and what he thinks the crier, what role that the crier plays in that vision, and ways we can work together, and what's going on. So some things on the horizon for sure, but fortunately right now, no big new projects. I'm sure Daniel will be quite happy about that.
Daniel, Christina, everybody. And then you have you mentioned that you rely on a group of people that you count on for advice. Do you have a personal board that you use, or is it more informal?
More informal, and probably not all of them would I don't know. It's there are just people that I have grown to know and just love and depend on, really since we moved back to Alpharetta from Athens in 2011. We mentioned we've talked about the Y a lot. Scott Dahl's on that list.
Yeah. I feel like he's on a lot of people's list.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and it's maybe that's a good place to kind of leave it. I would tell everybody needs a list like that.
Yes.
Where you can call somebody at, and no matter what they're doing or how busy they are, they can give you 5 minutes.
Yep.
And Scott's one of those people. Janet Rogers is one of those people. Allison Kloster is.
Allison, yeah.
She's wonderful. So I mean, there's. Fortunately, the list grows, but it is good to have a good base of people just to lean on.
Yeah. Well, I like that. I appreciate the time sharing how you pick and select the organizations you want to work with, and what you have, and your vetting process.
And congrats on the show. I mean, this is going great.
Well, yeah. You gave me the opportunity. It was part of the Appen media where they wanted to have more of a community outreach on this, and you give me an opportunity to share people's stories, and I've been enjoying it quite a bit. So I think
it's fun.
I think you're my ninth episode is what I heard. So
it's just a great way to meet people and find out their stories. So I host the Inside the Box podcast, just to give a quick plug on the Appen Podcast Network, and I think the coolest part about it is just hearing people's stories.
Yes, no, I agree.
You and I both probably bring on people mostly that we already know. But until you have them in here and you're talking to them and they're being recorded, you don't necessarily know their whole story. And everybody has something going on.
You don't know their story, and you don't know which story they're going to tell,
right.
even if you do know them.
Yeah.
So it has been fun. But no, I appreciate the opportunity doing this, and been having fun with it, and love hearing what you're doing with the Y and I know you've got other stuff going on, and I'm looking forward to getting the phone call to say I'm going to need your help doing this.
I hope
because
you
I'll answer, and it's always an interesting ride with you for sure. So,
well, thanks for having me on. Thanks,
Hans, for being on the show. So, if more people want to find more information on the YMCA, Alpharetta Y, where can they do that?
The best place to start is going to be ymcaatlanta.org, and then from there, you can find your community YMCA. So for us here in Alpharetta, it's the Ed Isaacson Alpharetta Family YMCA is its full name. But if you're listening to this in Dunwoody and Forsyth County or wherever it is, you can find one there too.
Perfect. And then if they want to see the latest adventures of Hans, where can they find you on social media?
Oh, Lord. Twitter is @HansAppen. at HANSAPPEN, or Facebook, facebook.com/Hans Appen.
Great. Thanks again for coming on.
Thanks, Jason.
Don't forget to look for the North Fulton Service podcast anywhere you listen to podcasts and on YouTube. Don't forget to rate the show, and you can subscribe there as well. Follow me on Twitter at Jason Binder, and be sure to tune in every Thursday for a new episode. Thank you for listening.